Now, it says here, and I want you to look at this thing a little bit. Let me see. Where's a marker with them? Marker. I got markers. Markers here. Let's see. And my last set. Belteshazzar, or Belshazzar, the king here, not Belteshazzar, that's Daniel's name in the Babylonian kingdom, but Belshazzar, which is almost an identical name. He's called the son of, I'm just going to put an N here for Nebuchadnezzar. He's actually his grandson. Okay? Now, your Bible does this on a number of occasions. For instance, anybody have their Bible, have Matthew, can someone open their Bible to Matthew chapter 1 for me? See how this works. How can this grandson be called the son? Okay? All right, Fred's going to help us here. You got Matthew 1:1?
Yep. Read for us. Just the one verse?
Yeah.
The book of the generation of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham.
So, Jesus is called the son of what? The son of David and the son of Abraham. Is Jesus the son of David? No, he's the descendant of David. So in this context here, when it says that he is the son of Nebuchadnezzar, he is the descendant of Nebuchadnezzar. They go through, and it's an interesting, this is where I wish I had my notes, because Nebuchadnezzar's son is murdered by his son-in-law. So, if you really, it follows Nebuchadnezzar's line through his daughter, because her husband kills Nebuchadnezzar's son and takes the throne. Then his son is born, and then you get to the grandson. So it goes through, and he is the grandson, but in an unusual way. And repeatedly he's called the son of Nebuchadnezzar, and it means he is the descendant. And Nebuchadnezzar was his ancestor. And it's a very normal thing in the scriptures. I looked several places in Kings and Chronicles. There were several places where kings were called, they were called David's son. And David, that's what was called. David was called their father. And, in one case, 11 generations after David, the king on the throne he calls David his father. So, when you see this, and historians argue about this, how can this be? It's inaccurate. It's not inaccurate. It's the way they said things in Bible times. It's consistent throughout your Bible. You would call a descendant the son, and the ancestor the father. Okay? So Jesus is called the son of Abraham. He's also called the son of David. And we know what that means. And it's not an inaccuracy. He is a descendant of them. So, just so you have that. I wish I had my notes, but that'll do for now. In the same hour, we see, and this is where you have to be careful. Most people think, they saw the hand writing. No, they didn't see the hand. All they saw is the what, folks? Just fingers. Imagine just fingers on the wall there, beginning to write. It would get your attention, and it did. And where it says, it wrote over against the candlestick upon the plaster of the wall of the king's palace. What it means is the candlestick lit up that part of the wall. So you have to put it right above one of those lights there where you see it nice and you see it well in a banquet hall. And being at night in an ancient banquet hall, most of it was probably fairly dimly lit, except where the candlestick was. So everyone could see this writing, and that's the point here. Then the king's countenance was changed, and his thoughts troubled him, so that the joints of his loins were loose. It means he began to shake. He was so nervous. How many of you have ever been so nervous you started shaking? Anybody? Anybody get up front and they were giving a speech and their legs started doing this thing? Have you ever, your leg got going when you're starting to speak, you get nervous? I've had it happen to me. I don't know why. Cut that out, like, you twitch, suddenly. Well, he's twitching all over the place. He's shaking uncontrollably at this point. Now, partly because he's scared to death, partly because he's probably drunk. You get drunk enough to shake too. But he's shaking. So whether it was alcohol or fear or both, and it was both, he begins to shake, this great king. And the king here, he cries aloud, and of course, bringing the astrologers, bringing the Chaldeans, bringing the soothsayers, and they cannot interpret his dream. I'm going to skip some of this, but he makes them a promise here. Whosoever shall read this writing and show me the interpretation thereof shall be clothed with scarlet and have a chain of gold about his neck. And he shall be the third ruler in the kingdom. Notice it says the third ruler in the kingdom. This takes another little bit of explanation here. Why was he going to make him the third ruler? Why was he not going to be the second ruler? And what happens here, and this is where the historians come in very nicely. This is why I wish I had all my notes. It disappeared somewhere on my computer. But anyways, while the king here is in Babylon, his father, the king's father is still alive. That's one of the reasons why we see the queen mother speaking a little later in the chapter. His father is still alive, but history tells us that for 10 years, his father went into an area called Tema and took up residence there and left his son on the throne in Babylon. So the historical records are very clear. Yes, this Belshazzar was the co-regent king, and he ruled Babylon. But his father was someplace else at 10 years, and his father was not in the city when they were attacked, and this will happen. So, unless you know some of these, you don't know some of these things, you kind of miss some things. So the king's father is gone, and I'm gonna give you a break and try to find my notes and show you the documentation for it, because they actually can document that there were two kings at the same time and they were co-regent to one another. All right, now let's go on from there. So he cannot make him the second ruler in the kingdom because he is the second ruler in the kingdom. He can only make him the third ruler, meaning next to me, you have the most power. So we get a hint that he's not the only king from this. And he wants to know what the reading means. So, then was King Belshazzar greatly troubled, his conscience changed in him, and his lords were astonished. And now the queen comes in. And give you an idea of the time frame here. Nebuchadnezzar was on the throne for 43 years. I'm doing this by memory. His son was there for 2 years and was murdered. Then we get the next king. There were two more. One of them, his father was 17 years. There's one king in here, I forget how many years it was. But you look at this, 2, 17, I forget what this one was. But there's only about 19 years between Nebuchadnezzar and this event happening. And so what we're seeing is, it's not like someone should have forgotten these things. The miracles that happened to Nebuchadnezzar, everyone, at least in the palace, should know about 19 or 20 years later. So Belshazzar knew these things. He knew about the fiery furnace. Okay? He knew about the story we just read, about Nebuchadnezzar being humble for 7 years and declaring that the God of the Hebrews was the God of God and Lord of Lords. But he does not take heed. He has gone back to idol worship completely. And he's recorded his father, Belshazzar's father, rebuilt the heathen temples in Babylon and emphasized them. So, they've completely gone back to idol worship. Daniel is still there, but he doesn't seem to be in the picture anymore. Nobody's listening to him anymore. He's a forgotten man because they've returned to idol worship. And thus the judgment is coming very swiftly. So, Daniel, let's see. So the queen arrives, and she explains what he should do. She says, O king, live forever. Let not thy thoughts trouble thee, nor let thy countenance be changed. There is a man in thy kingdom, in whom is the spirit of the holy gods. Now, remember we said he's listed as the son, but he's really the what? The grandson. So over this 20-year period, it's as if the rulers had forgotten all these things that we read in the book of Daniel. And she, God bless her soul, remembers them and is reminding her son of what he should remember and take heed to himself. And let me go to verse 12. Forasmuch as an excellent spirit in knowledge and understanding and interpreting of dreams and the showing of hearts and dissolving of doubts were found in this same Daniel, whom the king named Belteshazzar. Now let Daniel be called, and he will show you the interpretation. So the faith of Nebuchadnezzar and the things that happened to Nebuchadnezzar were remembered by the wife of his father, but not by this Belshazzar. He has forgotten these things. He is ignoring these things. Then was Daniel brought before the king, and the king spake and said unto Daniel, Art thou Daniel, which are of the children of the captivity of Judah? He's talking down to him. Okay? Oh, you're one of those Jewish captives. This is how he's speaking to him now. All right? Whom the king, my father, really his great-grandfather, brought out of Jewry. I have even heard of thee, that the spirit of the gods is in thee, and that the light and understanding and excellent wisdom is found in thee. And now the wise men, the astrologers, have been brought in before me, that they should read this writing and make known unto you the interpretation thereof. But they could not show the interpretation of the thing. So, here it comes. And I have heard thee, that thou can make interpretations and dissolve doubts. Now, if thou can read the writing and make known the interpretation, I'll clothe you with scarlet and have a chain of gold around your neck, and you'll be the what? Third ruler in the kingdom. And we know why that's the third ruler now. Then Daniel answered and said, Keep your gifts, king. That's what he really said. And give your rewards to another, yet I will read the writing for you and make the interpretation. So, and he reminds them here. Now, in a court of law, if someone commits a murder and there's a trial, did the jury see the murder? For the jury to decide the person is guilty, what do they want? Two what? Two witnesses. The one witness may be a fingerprint on the murder weapon. That's a witness. Or you know, blood types. They want two forms of evidence. They want two witnesses here. And even though you did not see the crime being committed, you say you're guilty based on the evidence. You don't have to see it with your eyes to know that it's true. In a court of law, the United States or any country on the earth, we usually do this in all nations or most nations. Well, the same is true with God's standard here. This Belshazzar did not, probably never saw these miracles when they happened. But he what? He heard about them from reliable sources. And I'm sure, you know, these kinds of, a miracle like that, people are going to talk about forever. That's why we have it in our Bible. He had heard these things, but he ignored them. And apparently he'd heard them, more than once because of the magnitude of the things that happened to Nebuchadnezzar and his great fame. He is held responsible to God because by reliable witnesses, he knows these things have happened. According to Romans chapter 1, he is holding the truth in unrighteousness. He knows something to be true, and he's giving it no heed. This will put people in hell, folks. This is why people go to hell. They know something to be true. They've heard it from reliable sources. Maybe they've seen it themselves, but they know it to be true, and they ignore it. And they will be judged based on what they know to be true, even if they have not seen it with their own eyes. All right? How many of you believe in electricity? I've never seen electricity. Well, maybe, yes, a lightning bolt. I guess I have seen electricity, but, you don't see electricity. You all use those cell phones. You must believe that, these invisible waves go through. You don't see those, but you talk on your phone with confidence like someone's going to answer. How's that phone work? I don't know how that phone works. It just works. Okay? So we have a capacity to believe in things we cannot see. And in this case, we're accountable because we have reliable witnesses here. This is why this king is so greatly judged. This, the revelation and the miracles that came to Nebuchadnezzar, he was no stranger to, but he's ignoring them. And his mother is reminding him of these things. So, O thou king, the most high God, gave Nebuchadnezzar thy father a kingdom and majesty and glory and honor. And for the majesty that he gave him, all peoples, nations, language trembled and feared before him. Whom he slew, and whom he would keep alive, he was set up. And whom he would put down, down they went. So, he's being reminded. But, what's this but about here? Some of you are reading ahead. Chapter 4. But when he became proud, and this is what Daniel's reminding him of. When he became proud, his heart was lifted up, his mind hardened in pride, he was disposed of from his kingly throne, and they took his glory from him. We just read it. There's a reason for this whole thing. He's being reminded of the story you just heard about. And he was driven from the sons of men, and his heart was made like the beast, and his dwelling was like the wild asses. They fed him with the grass we read all this. We know the story. But he's being reminded of these things. But he knew these things. So, O thou son, O Belshazzar. Remember, your ancestor, your great-grandfather, Nebuchadnezzar. What he's saying is, you have not humbled your heart, though thou knew all this. Daniel is saying, you heard these things. You knew about these things. You heard them from reliable sources. You knew all this, and instead you praised the gods of silver and gold and brass and iron and wood. And now you're going to be judged. And this is the basis of God's judgment. For there, and here it is, Romans 1:16, there is revealed God's wrath. Ooh, that's what it says. From heaven upon every lack of reverence and upon every unrighteousness of men who in unrighteousness are holding down the truth. They're suppressing what they know and following something else for whatever reason. Because that which is knowable concerning God is plainly evident to them, for God made it clear to them. In Romans, it's creation that is clearly evident to them. It's the witness of creation. But this king has a witness that's more local. He has the history of his own family and his great-grandfather and what he knew about this man. So he's doubly responsible, if you will. But thou hast lifted up thyself against the Lord of heaven, and they have brought the vessels of his house before thee, and thou and thy lords and thy wives and thy concubines have drunk wine in them. You took vessels from the house of God and used them to get drunk and praise your false idols. He's really pushing the thing here. Now, then was the part of the hand sent from him, and this writing was written, and we're going to explain this to you. This is in Aramaic, and it's really only 3 words, okay? But not understanding the principles of pride and humility in whatever revelation was given to Daniel, the soothsayers and the Chaldeans could not interpret this very simple thing that was written on the wall. They didn't know what it meant. The meaning here means it's a measure, okay? And so it's like saying your life has been measured here. Tekel also has to do with weights and measurements. And this is the interpretation, and meaning God has numbered your kingdom and finished it. Tekel, thou art weighed in the balance and are found wanting. And the third word means you divide something. Perez here, the kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and the Persians. So the is divided what? Daniel was able to say, the kingdom is divided. Now the reason it says the kingdom is divided here, the Medes and the Persians were a dual kingdom. They were 2 kingdoms that combined, and they were going to be conquered by this combined kingdom, not just by the Medes, not just by the Persians, but by both. In history, in the Bible, you'll see Darius, you'll see Cyrus. Cyrus was the ruler of the Persian Empire, Darius was the ruler of the Medes. And they co-rule at the same time, Cyrus being the greater and more powerful of the kings. But he's going into a divided kingdom. Now, was it chapter 2? The image? Remember? The arms? The Medes and the Persians. The dual kingdom. Here again, the divided kingdom. The Medes and the Persians. So he's very consistent here and he's very historical. This is what's going to happen to him. Okay. Then commanded Belshazzar. They clothed Daniel with scarlet, put a chain of gold about his neck, and made a proclamation concerning him that he should be the third ruler in the kingdom. Now, how quickly does the judgment come? Just as fast as the judgment came upon Nebuchadnezzar. They are like in this way. In that night was Belshazzar, the king of the Chaldeans, slain, and Darius the Mede took the kingdom, being about 62 years old. So, I want you to see this thing. This is the Ishtar Gate we talked about. And just give you an idea why this was going on here. Why he's having a party when this is going on. Just erase here a little bit. Yeah, whiteboards there? Take a guess. How many miles long was the Wall of Babylon? Give me a guess. How long was the Wall of Babylon, circling this great city? Put some numbers up for us. How many miles? Let's do it with miles, not kilometers here. If anybody can, let's see who's close. How big was this wall? This double wall. Some places a triple wall. How long did it go? 6 miles. 6 mile wall.
50.
Come on, let's see some other guesses.
50.
50?
Yes, sir.
50? Okay, 15? 15-mile wall? What would say you're going once, going twice? 30-mile wall. Just for fun here. Anybody else with a guess on their boards? Nobody wants to. You're shy tonight. All right, here we go. 42 miles. This wall stretched around not only Babylon, but the outlying region. Now, they knew they were under attack. They knew that Cyrus had an army and was coming to attack the city, but they thought it was a joke. Here's why. You have a 42-mile wall around you. Different historians give us different measurements on the wall, but the lowest estimate was that the wall was 75 feet high, going up. And how many of those walls are there? 2 or 3. Okay? At the lowest measurement, the wall was 30 feet deep. So how does an ancient man get 75 feet in the air to go over this wall? And then you got to swim through the moat, and then you got to climb another wall. The Babylonians did not actually guard the wall. Why guard it? Nobody can get up that high. So, when Belshazzar was having his feast with his lords, the guards were out getting drunk. The whole city was in a party mode. Now, weren't they afraid of a siege? They knew that this was coming. I found this in Bible Knowledge Commentary. They had stored up enough food for 20 years. Okay? So they have 20 years supply of food. They have the Euphrates River running through the city. They have water. They have food and water for 20 years. And nobody's going over the wall. So it may be that Belshazzar actually called the feast to let people know there's nothing to worry about. All right? Now, the city is divided by the Euphrates, and they understood that the river in the center, you got a wall here, you got a wall here, the wall goes over here, that someone might try to come in here, so they built a gate below the wall. So if you want to attack, you got to hold your breath and swim under this gate and come up the other side and then get through another wall and do another swim through. An army is not going to get through this way. Now, how many of you know how they invaded the city? You know. A couple of you know. All right? Okay. This is what they did when they attacked. They came from the north, which would be up, with an army. And they came with an army from the south, by the river. In the north, they dug a canal. The canal diverted the water from the Euphrates River into a nearby lake. The water level went to about waist high, and the soldiers just marched right in under the gate that was unguarded. And in one night they took the city with only a few casualties. Okay? So, you know, the city that could not be defeated was down in what? One night. Really, an invasion that probably took a couple of hours. And they simply went to the center of the city by surprise, killed the king, and set up a kingdom. And now it's this, if you will, the first kingdom in what they call the age of the Gentiles is now over, the Babylonian kingdom. Now in the age of the Gentiles, we have the Medes and the Persians. It happened that fast. Can you imagine? There's 1,000 guys, they're drunk and they're partying, there's nothing to worry about, and they're minutes away from being slaughtered. Now, I've read historical accounts of this, the secular accounts that, you know, they went in and they slaughtered these lords along with the king and took over very quickly. Well, they're laughing and praising the gods of, you know, wood and gold. They're about to be dead. And so pride comes before a fall. This makes the Terminator and Thurman Thomas look like nothing, folks. This is like an immediate, incredible humbling. But it happens at the moment that they dig out the gold and the silver items from the Jewish temple and praise false gods with them. And at that moment, they're defeated. So we have the story, if you will. The Bible tells us what's going on inside the city. History, or secular history, tells us what was going on outside the city. I could not find it, but I've even seen the names of the two traders from Babylon who told them where they could divert the river and how they get in like that. They're actually named. I think I found it in Encyclopedia Britannica. It's no secret. So in military history, this is one of the most astonishing defeats that has ever happened. And our Bible tells us exactly why. Now, secular historians like to keep God out of history, but he's written all over this thing. He's written all over it. And really, if there's a secret to life, it's humility. So we have 2 chapters in the Bible saying, hey, God is in control. God gives the kingdom to whoever he wants. It's by grace that you rule, not because you're a genius, not because you have royal blood in your veins. He can take the meanest of men, meaning the most common of men, and raise them up when he wants to. 2 chapters in a row, just to get this point across. But I can't think of a better historical illustration than these 2 chapters. See if I have anything here. Oh, I mentioned with the Ishtar gate. By the way, if you stand, a person is about that tall. And this was a double gate. This is the smaller gate. If you remember, the other gate is higher. So that they, the wall was all in vain. Didn't keep a soul out when they needed it. And the city went down. Let's see. Oh, here's some of my notes here. See how many of these. This is the evidence. You see this little cylinder here? This cylinder was found in a nearby city by archaeologists, and it was found, there were 4 of these. They were found in the temple to the moon god, in the 4 corners, and all 4 of these said the same thing. And this is where they get the names of these different kings, who was related to who, and what it had is, it shows a prayer of Belshazzar's father praying for his son and names his son Belshazzar. Belshazzar is named on this cylinder tablet. And so we know he's a real person, he really existed. We actually know the year that Babylon fell. It would be, I think it's the 539 in October 12th. They know the exact day. This is the information. I won't take long with this, but I want you to see how accurate this thing is. And I forgot, Nabonidus is his father. And his father is praying to the moon god for his son. but he gives the son's name. Now do thy save me, Nabonidus, the king of Babylon, from transgression against thine exalted majesty, and grant thou to me the gift of long life. And in the heart of Belshazzar, my firstborn son, in offspring of my body, do thou stir up reverence for thine exalted majesty. This would be nice if he were praying to the right God. It would be a wonderful prayer. By the way, Monday comes from moon god, by the way. You don't think we have any remnant of this thing. That's where your Monday comes from. Wow. But anyways, so stir up reverence for thine exalted majesty, and let him not commit sin, but let him enjoy the fullness of life. He prayed to the wrong deity, and his prayer was definitely not answered. So, this thing is that we actually have records of these guys' names and their religious sway too. We can see they were idol worshippers. Let's see, there's one more tablet here, if I can find it. I wanted to see if you show you a picture of this. This is another one, I don't have a picture, but 1924, publication Decipherment of an Ancient Cuneiform Text, versus account of Nabonidus, and through a valuable information was brought to light, clearly collaborating that Belshazzar's kingly position at Babylon, explaining the manner of becoming co-regent with his father, Nabonidus. So this is all lined out in history, and it's also in the book of Daniel. This is another, and they found this thing, and this gives this guy's name too. Another document, the Nabonidus Chronicle. The statement is found in regards to Nabonidus' 7th, 9th, 10th, 11th regnal years, or regnal years, that's how to say it. And it reads, the king was in Tema. He wasn't in Babylon, while the prince and the officers and his army were at Akkad, which means Babylonian. Apparently, Nabonidus spent much of his reign away from Babylon, and while not relinquishing his position as supreme lord, he entrusted administrative authority to his son Belshazzar to act during his absence. So this guy we have records of this king. We know who he was, and we know when he was defeated, and we know by who. All right. Well, anyways, we'll leave that for now, and then we're going to go back we're going to touch on something very different in a couple of minutes. Amen? Take a 10-minute break.